What do you do when your pixel is targeting the same old audience, but you want to move on to a bigger audience and you want to introduce new products? Today on Ecommerce OS Fast Track Sessions, I have Kent Wilson from RV SnapPad on to answer that question. Kent, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, let's get into it.
Absolutely. Great to have another Canadian on here. Normally I do have, I only have Americans on, and I'm very, very happy to have a Canadian. Kent, for people who don't know anything about what you're doing, give me a little bit of background on RV SnapPad and what you're doing in the space.
Yeah, so it's actually a family company. My brother is my father, launched, kind of bootstrapped it. 2016 is when we came out with something. We came out with something called a permanent jack pad. That doesn't mean anything to most people because most people are not RVers, but within the industry, that was kind of a new product category. So previous to us, people were carrying around what were called jack pads. They were just blocks of wood, slabs of rubber to put under what are called jack feet for modern RVs. So they have these leveling systems with metal feet that come out to level the RV wherever they are. So if you're on sand, gravel, if you're on concrete, if you're on soft sod, there's a lot of reasons people had to put stuff beneath these feet. So as I said, prior to us, people were carrying stuff around. We developed something that is made out of recycled rubber tires, and it snaps right on to these snap pads, snaps right onto these jack feet. So it's kind of a permanent solution. Took off right away. Yeah. And yeah, we've been building it ever since.
And so one of the things that we were talking about, and I think as we get into the big problem to solve here, is that you were aiming for a higher end RV market, right? And aiming into that higher end market, which I love. I love going after a higher end market, right? You can charge more. The problem was that you realized that the majority of RV owners, and like myself, are probably not in that sort of higher range, but you can still solve problems for them. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So we launched with a certain size and shape of permanent jack pad. And it just happened to fit the most frequent foot size shape on the market, which was about 9 inches. That just happened to appear on mostly premium RVs.
Gotcha.
So what we discovered over time is it's highly fractured. There's a bunch of different shapes and sizes, and we just started to fill in our product catalog based on demand.
So walk me through the big problem that you're trying to solve on this session today.
Yeah, so the big thing is for the first several years of our existence, we were focusing on that top end of the market. So 15 to maybe 20% of total RVers were in the sort of premium strata, right? So It was a great way for us to get traction. We actually couldn't keep the product in stock for several years. But two things happened, obviously. Facebook got harder post 20. But also we started introducing products for the lower range in RVs, from $70,000 all the way down to like the $20,000 rigs. And that's about 70% of the market. And that is our sort of how we're going to grow over time, because we're, at some point you saturate that premium end of the market. But since Facebook has been targeting that audience for years, even going broad, I find that it kind of circles the same 5 to 7 million people that they consider to be in market in North America for us. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, like 5 to 7 million, that's such a small number on Facebook. It is a niche product, obviously, but I know there's 20 to 30 million active RVers in North America. So
there's 20 to 30 million RV owners in North America.
Right.
You seem to not be able
surveys.
to hit. Now, is this like monthly right now that you're hitting those sort of 5 million? How big of a time span are you looking at right now?
It's usually annually because it's really hard. One, it's really hard to scale because it's seasonal like that. But two, because we keep hitting sort of that ceiling of hitting the same people, you can't spend too much every month, right? Because you're not expanding your audience. You're hitting the same people over and over again. So yeah, that's really capped. I think the most we've spent in a month Canadian is 60 or 70,000 on Meta. But there was
and that's about as much as you've been able to get into the market. Is that why that's the most that you've spent on Meta?
Yeah, because you just start getting into frequency, right? Rather than new reach. That's the problem.
Absolutely. So I think that this is an incredibly common problem, what you're having. So I think that there's two different issues here. And again, guys, if you don't know me at all, my name is Jordan West. I have been in this game for a long time, own 7 different brands. Right now am launching Ecommerce OS, which is this new program where I'm trying to help people and with problems like this, with what Kent is going through. So I have faced a lot of these problems, have an agency with almost 50 employees right now that helps bigger brands. My passion is to help with issues like these because this is exactly what happens all the time. So frequency, let's get into that part first, Kent. So one of the best little tricks that I learned on frequency and trying to figure out different ads was from someone that not everyone out there on X loves, and his name is Charlie T. Charlie's been on my podcast a couple of times, and I think one of my superpowers is taking meat off of bones and then spitting the bones out, and I can really do that with Charlie. And there's some brilliant things that he has brought into my meta media buying mix, which have helped so insanely. And one of them is daily frequency. And so what I love to look at on specific ads is actually looking and seeing where in the funnel Facebook is actually putting my ads. And so you might already know this, but for people out there watching this, this is the way that I look at it really shorthand. Is I go to the breakdown and I find daily frequency, and if my average daily frequency, now not my total frequency during that time, but my daily frequency is under 1.15, I'm considering that a top of funnel ad. And so what I'm trying to do here is like diagnose, like, is this an ad problem or is this a pixel problem, right? And it's probably both. But on the ad side, what I'm really looking for is to continually test these top of funnel ideas to try to get into the place where, number one, Meta spends on that ad because we want it spending on the top of funnel mostly. And I think a lot of brands get into this mix where it's like, actually, it's spending the majority on that bottom of funnel because you're telling it to go and get conversions. And it's like, sweet, I'm going to do that for you. I'm the smartest AI in the world. Well, maybe ByteDance is, we don't know. But between those two, they're like the two smartest AIs in the world. And so you've got this. So I'm constantly looking and finding, of the ads that are spending the most amount of money, is the frequency under 1.15, right? And so is that the case? Is that something that you have looked at, Kent? And is that something that you're looking at when you're meta media buying right now?
Yeah, so I definitely look at frequency and CPMs, stuff like that, to try to see, where in the funnel it's placing it. A lot of the time we get stuff that starts at 1 and 1.5, and if it's a winner, it stays in the ad account for a while, right? But it almost always creeps up to 2, 2.5, 3.
Now,
and of course, retargeting ones start out and they go 2 to 3 immediately, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, totally. And you can see that, right, in accounts. Now, one of the things that I've done to alleviate that is use flex ads recently. I find that flex ads actually keep the frequency, the daily ad frequency, down below that 1.15 if you put in very similar ideas, right? So you take that ad and you create multiple different hooks off of that ad, right? With a similar type of creative. And that is where some of the magic can happen, is using flex ads. And so what I found is running a really simple either CBO or Advantage Plus campaign. And I'm totally fine with Advantage Plus campaigns. I used to be like absolutely against them. Right now, I'm seeing some really, really good success with Advantage Plus campaigns, but using flex ads within them. So you'll use like 10 flex ads within them. So the amount of variations, it's like in the thousands upon thousands of different variations that you're testing at one time in that one Advantage Plus campaign. And that seems to be doing really well. Now, if that's running really stably, maybe that's the wrong
I think
word,
that's
but
the word.
I think we all know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean.
If that's all running well, then, and you're still hitting into your yearly, and I like the idea that you're looking on a yearly basis, right? Of like, how many people are we actually hitting? What I would look at is like, hey, if frequency for the entire year is above, let's say like above 3, and you've only hit a total of 5 million people, you've probably saturated whatever market you're going after. So creative And is that the case, Kent?
Absolutely.
So creative is only going to get you so far with that, right? Because now you're looking at like product targeting, right? And one thing I want to caution actually everyone on here is do not put in the same campaign or ad set, depending if you're running a CBO campaign, don't put your dynamic product ads, if you are using them, into that same one. That is going to be a big mistake. Meta will just take it and spend on that campaign, on the dynamic product ads. So if you're running carousels or anything like that, it will always go and take it. Not saying that those can't be top of funnel, but I have not generally seen them be nearly as top of funnel as video ads, right? For instance. And again, image ads, really difficult to maintain a top of funnel on image ads. I find that they get into bottom of funnel. I don't know if that's similar to what you've come across.
Especially for our product, because you don't know what you're looking at until you're familiar with it to some degree. So we do have static ads, but at that point you're like, oh, it's those snap ad things typically, right? So usually mid to bottom funnel for us.
So a couple more questions here. Are you running post-purchase surveys?
Yes.
Awesome.
NoCommerce.
With NoCommerce. Big shout out to the guys at NoCommerce. I told them, I'm like, I should give you more shout outs on my podcast. They don't pay me or anything,
They're awesome.
But they should. Yeah, no, NoCommerce is such a great solution for this kind of stuff. And one of the questions that, and I've been with NoCommerce and helped them out since like the very beginning. And I remember Jeremiah, who was the founder there, he came to me and he's like, Jordan, I have this brilliant question that you need to ask. Okay. How long have you known about us before you purchased? Is that a question that you ask?
He helped me set up my NoCommerce surveys.
Oh, he did? Oh, okay. So you've been set up for a while if Jeremiah helped you.
Yeah, actually hasn't been that long. I've interacted with him on Twitter a few times, so that's why.
Okay. I can imagine from some of your chew on this background as well that he's probably like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you. So anyway, how long do people know about you before purchasing?
Yeah, this is one of the big pieces for us, right? So it's kind of a barbell. There's a bunch of people within the first 7 to 14 days, and then it trickles all the way back to a year plus. So there is a bunch of like long consideration cycle in our even our D2C, right? And some of that might be seasonal. As you can imagine, a lot of people who only RV in certain circumstances. So if you see my ad in September, you've put your RV away. Yeah. You're probably going to have to see another ad in April when you bring it out of storage.
Totally. I would never buy anything in that time, right? Exactly. That totally makes sense. So, okay, so you've got this really long stretch. Have you done any research or have you figured out the amount of touch points that it takes for your average customer to see before they actually purchase?
Haven't. I would like to. I mean, we do have a data feed that comes into Slack, and it's from whenever a sale comes through, it gets tagged. And then the part of the tag is like session number, session 14, session 12, session 5. There's a lot of 10, 15, 20. When I see it. So that's just me like looking at it, but we should consolidate that data.
That's just sessions. That's not even touch points that they have maybe on Google Display or YouTube or any of these. Wow. So I think this is kind of where something else interesting comes in, is that the average customer needs to see your ads 25 to 30 times or some sort of touch point before they're going to make a purchase, right? And so people get all uppity about frequency, but really what it needs to be is diversity of frequency. And so email is a part of that. SMS is a part of that. All of these like different touch points are a part of that. Maybe some of that's word of mouth, right? Like
absolutely it is.
All of these things come along the way. So that again doesn't solve yet the problem though of what the pixel is doing. Right. So one other suggestion that I have for this is to create different custom conversions, right? Okay. So you have custom conversions that are in your, like call them like lower tier or whatever you want to call them, right? If you want to call them like weekend warriors versus your sort of snowbirds. Higher end, your snowbirds. Is that what you call them?
Yeah.
Like I think that might be a really good way to be able to separate out these two. So you keep the same pixel, right? But what you're doing is you're actually separating out those custom conversions. So keep your regular, because that pixel is fully seasoned on the high end RV market, right? And I highly doubt that we've saturated it yet, but trying to get into this lower end market, what we want to do is have a different custom conversion for them. And then I would run that as a separate campaign. So again, I'm channeling Charlie here again in something that he has talked about a lot. And that is a different campaign per campaign objective, right? And I think that's a really smart and like simple way to look at it. And again, this is why like in Ecommerce OS, generally my recommendation for people is run your own ads, right? Up until a certain point, it really makes sense unless you're trying to solve a specific problem. Maybe it's a content problem. This is why like at Social Commerce Club, like we mostly are working with brands that are sort of like $100 million plus because we're kind of in that kind of range. Right. Because I think that the majority of brands that are probably under 10 million should be running their own ads, right? If they can, unless they're trying to solve for a problem that is a content problem or maybe you just don't have the time and you're like, hey, I just need to outsource this and I need to find somebody good, right? But making it as simple as possible is really the name of the game. Does that help, Kent? Does that help give you a little bit of direction in what to do next?
Yeah, it's something I've considered in the past. Like we have sort of the one CBO. I think it's not Advantage Plus. It's just kind of broad targeting right now. And it's operating with, I think, 3 ad sets. It's basically 3 different tests that we're running, and then we just scaled them out because they're doing so well, that sort of thing, right? But I've always wondered if I should be starting separate CBOs per, say, RV type. So the Class A motorhomes, you can have all the same sort of creative in it. You can push them back to a collection page that's relevant to that RV type. The persona that goes with Class A motorhomes will recognize themselves in the ads, and then maybe do a fifth wheel, which is another kind of RV, or maybe travel trailers for the third sort of CBO. That's kind of the way I've thought about differentiating things in the future.
Totally. And then it also depends on your budget, right? Because you don't want to spread your budget out too much. I would definitely recommend going into a separate CBO, right? And especially if you feel comfortable, CBO being campaign budget optimization for people that, in case you're not 100% sure on that. But I think that's a really good idea, is to separate out at least those 2 personas, because you are going after completely different people, right? Like the guy that owns the big fifth wheel or the big travel trailer is a totally different person than me who owns a small 17-foot trailer. Right? Like it's just a different person that is trying to solve a different problem, and probably camps or RVs a heck of a lot less, but it's still trying to solve that problem, right? Like I have that problem, like I think about it all the time. It's like the thing I like doing the least when I go out camping is jacking up the trailer and trying to get it all even and stuff. Kent, thanks so much for coming on, bringing the problem. And I hope that you guys out there also, this was a solve. My goal with Ecommerce OS is to have both one-on-one problem solving sessions, but then also group problem solving sessions. So if any of you guys are interested in checking out Ecommerce OS, this is the new way that you were able to work with me, the first time that I've opened up anything like this before. Kent, any final words before we go?
No, yeah, this was very helpful. It definitely solidified some things in my head. Like, I've been doing this for years, but I'm not an expert like you are. I haven't worked with $100 million brands, so it's fascinating to hear like I'm on the right path and I should just keep moving forward and stick with what I think is the right way to go.
Absolutely. I think that the key thing that I want everyone to take away from today is like, just simple is the best thing to do here. You don't need to rebuild your ad account.
No.
Or anything like that. And don't kill what is already working.
Right. Just find new stuff that also works.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time today, Kent. That was great. And
yeah,
guys, go check out ecommerceos.co is where you can find out more about there and apply to work with me. Thanks so much.